Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Ilan Mor, as it was said. I'm the ambassador of Israel to Croatia. I came here in January this year, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a diplomat, only an ambassador. But I represent a country which has become a center, which become a role model of what we call the entrepreneurial spirit, a startup nation. And this is what I'm going to talk to you about, to present you what made Israel a small country, very small country. For those who do not know where Israel is, let me just show you. In the Middle East, 3 hours flying time from Croatia, but living in an area which is a very unfriendly one, a country which was a safe haven for many Holocaust survivors who decided to open their second chapter in life in their second land, in their land of the Jewish people, the land of Israel. We started by being 600,000 people in 1948. By now, we are more than 9 million. After 71 years, we have become, as I said, the center, or one of the epicenters of innovation, of entrepreneurship, and many countries, many companies are coming to Israel, are visiting Israel in order to find out, to crack this enigma, this question: how could we do the same? How can we do what Israel has been doing for the last 71 years? And what is the secret of success of Israel being one of the leading countries in innovation and in startups? The topic of my lecture today is how to make a startup nation. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I have no magic formula for you. You cannot go to the supermarket, you cannot take this formula, make abracadabra, and then you have a startup nation. No. So, the minute I've started, made the record straight, I have no answer for you. What I would like to show you is what made Israel a startup nation, these principles, which some of them you have heard today, presented to you by entrepreneurs, but I'm talking about the broader picture. I'm talking about a country which, as I said, 9 million citizens, growth of 3.2, inflation of 1.28, full member of the OECD since 2010, very good credit rating, a country which showed itself for the last 75 years and became, as I said, one of the leading countries in the West and a role model for many other countries. So now let me start talking about this ecosystem, innovation ecosystem of Israel, which is a combination of many factors, starting from the army, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, through the universities, the academia, through the incubators, the accelerators, through the VC, venture capitals, and the multinational companies, and not less important, the involvement and the very important influence of the public sector, which is on the right side down. Public sectors, I mean the government of Israel, has made it almost 30 years ago a point to be involved in all what is needed to create this ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, because the government can allow itself to take risks, to put money to support small, medium-sized, and big-sized startup companies in their adventure. It is an adventure to create something from nothing. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are some clusters of what made Israel these ingredients, what made Israel a success story. I would, since of the lack of time, I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I would like to talk about something which it is here, especially when we talk about the educated human resources here, and of course the whole system all put together creates the ecosystem, the Israeli ecosystem in the field of innovation. I mentioned the army, ladies and gentlemen. Army in Israel is a necessity. And please remember the word necessity because I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. The army for us is something which we must do. At the age of 18, students who graduate from high school in Croatia, in America, in Europe, they are thinking about the next level, which is university. In Israel, the 18-year-old students who graduate from high school, they think about what they are going to do in the army. For us, 3 years service for men is compulsory, and 2 years for women. It is a compulsory, a mandatory service in the Israeli army. But thinking about what we are going to do in the army shows that the army is not only a vehicle, an instrument of the government to protect and defend the country, but also a place in which you can bring about your own qualifications, yourself. And the army gives you, as a person, even though the army is not a place in which gives more credit to individualism. The army is a place which you have to work together. But nevertheless, every soldier, every young soldier, can have the chance in order to prove himself, be it in the Air Force, be it in the tanks, be it the infantry, but be it also in the computers, in the intelligence, and other fields in the army, which needs your creative mind. The army is a greenhouse for ideas because of our geostrategic situation, because we are isolated in the Middle East, because we have been victims for many years of boycott, be it from Europe, be it from other countries. We created a situation, or we were forced to live in a situation in which if we don't do things for ourselves, no one will do it for us. So necessity, ladies and gentlemen, for Israel is the #1 motor for creative thinking, for innovation, from using what you have at your disposal to make the things that no one else will give it to you or will do it for you. The army teaches our young people, a woman or a man, the various qualifications, various virtues, which will make them, after 3 or 2 years, ready for life, ready to be entrepreneurs. Let me give you an example. I'll start from the Air Force. Imagine a young Israeli soldier, an officer, sits in a cockpit of, F-16. At the age of 23, 24, he uses, and he is a master of the most sophisticated system of a killing machine. At the age of 24. Imagine what this by itself does to him. He is alone, 50,000 feet in the sky. He is alone. He learns how to conduct responsibility, accountability. He learns to know what is a teamwork because he's alone in the cockpit, but around him there are his fellow pilots. He knows how to activate the most sophisticated technology, the most modern technology which exists. This is only part of what the army gives you as a person. There is no doubt in my mind that Israelis at the age of 21, 22, after the military service, are much more ready for life than any other youngsters at the same age in the world. And this is part of the contribution of the army to us as a society. And this is also part of the fact that Israel, as a small country, has a very robust defense industry, which we not only supply our needs, our self-needs, we also export it. So the combination of serving in the army, being in a position to implement ideas, because the army rank doesn't matter. If you have a good idea and you are a private or a sergeant and you can sit with a colonel or a general and you can tell him, Mr. General, Mr. Colonel, your idea sucks. I have a better idea. And if you have a better idea, you win. Win, I mean, we win. The system, Israel wins for the best idea which can be provided or produced in the military service. So the army, and I would like you to think about it not, as I said at the beginning, a unit or an instrument of defending and in the battlefield, but also as a greenhouse for ideas, for getting experience, for getting all these virtues which can make you or her a good entrepreneur once you decide to do it. No one, I mean, there are, not all of us are entrepreneurs, myself included. I decided to go and deal with diplomacy and not to become an entrepreneur. But once I had decided, if I had decided, I had all the basic qualifications to start to become or to be an entrepreneur because of the military service. I served in the army 4.5 years. My wife served in the army 2 years. My son, my daughter, everyone in Israel serves in the army. So everyone in Israel is an entrepreneur in potential. The second element which makes Israel quite unique in this regard is the idea, the strategic idea, to invest in research and development. We are investing, we, the government, every government, invests in research and development 4.5 to 5% from our GDP. This is one of the highest numbers in the world. The combination, which I showed you before, between our ecosystem, between the universities, the public sector, the Ministry of Economy, the incubators, the army, the VC companies, and multinational, which I'm going to talk in a minute about them too, all of them create a situation in which the research and development are very close to each other in Israel. There is a close proximity between the universities and the public sector and the incubators, and of course, all of them are working together in the favor of the startup companies. Element number 3 is education. The Jewish people is known to be very educated. Throughout the years, because of political reasons, persecutions, anti-Semitism, we used to be close with each other. We used to live with each other, but we also were part of during the emancipation in the 19th century and until today, we used to be part of the society. But we had to know, we knew about, at that time that being a part in the society, you have to show yourself, you have to prove yourself. So we, the Jewish people, put a lot of influence, a lot of emphasis of studying, of learning. We wanted to show ourselves better than the surrounding neighborhood. So the idea of the principle of learning and asking questions, studying not now in the 19th century or the 20th century, it goes back to the days of the Talmud, which is the second phase after the Old Testament, after the Bible. So there is a clear line between the old days 2,500 years ago and today's to Albert Einstein. All of them, throughout the centuries and the years, we have been asking why. Why is it that and not the other way? The idea of challenging what seems to me the status quo is also part of the identification card of Israel as a startup nation. Asking questions, challenging the status quo, not taking no for an answer, failing. I've heard many speakers here talking about failure is not the end of the world. I think in Israel, it is not only this attitude which is not the end of the world, but we use it as a leverage for success. You start again. You think again. You never give up. You learn it in the army, you learn it at home, and you implement it once you become an entrepreneur. So the element 3 is education. These are, to summarize, some of the virtues which you learn in the, it is called DNA, attitude, characteristic, and culture. You can see here the list: challenging, question everything, strong drive. We are very much motivated because we know that if we don't do it for ourselves, nobody will do it for us. And a solution-driven approach to real problem, cost-effective, going global, etc., etc. Those are all the virtues which you can find in an Israeli entrepreneur. I've heard stories about Israeli companies, startups who went to the United States, were kicked out through the door. They came out, they came back through the window, kicked out again. But at the end of this process, they were very successful in presenting and doing business with the counterparts of the in the United States. So don't give up. Don't give up. Try to use a failure as a leverage for your success. And this is something, sometimes in the civilian life, you have to pay a lot of money for this failure. But in the army, you can afford yourself to take a failure and to make it as a success story, because again, in the back of the mind of every Israeli is the principle of necessity. If we don't do it, nobody else will do it ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll show you the map of the Middle East. I'm coming again to the Middle East. Look who are our neighbors. Do you want to change your neighbors with our neighbors? I don't think so. No. There is no cross-border trade. There is no cooperation. Even though we have some peace agreements with our neighbors, the region is very hostile. Not only hostile, Israel is located in a semi-desert area. You know the story about Moses, the big prophet who took the Israelites from Egypt, right? You know the story. Two elements I would like to mention here. He took us 40 years in the desert. And at the end, he brought us to the land of Israel, a land which is half desert, no water, the climate is very bad, no place for real agriculture, and for this we were wandering in the Sinai Peninsula for 40 years. Not only this, Moses stuttered, and when he went up to the Mount Sinai to have this encounter with God, at that time he was given the 10 Commandments to be given to the Israelites. God told him, you take the Israelites and take them to Moses thought that he wanted to say Canada, but he said, no, Canaan. Canaan is the old name for the land of Israel. So, what can I tell you? We came to the land of our forefathers, which is really a desert. No natural resources, no water. Yes, in the last couple of years, we found some natural gas offshore Israel in the Mediterranean. No oil. I mean, he could have taken us to Saudi Arabia. I mean, this would have been another story. So we came to a place which has no natural resources, but one natural resource is our key for success. This is the human resource. From the very beginning, from 1948, we have decided to invest in our human resources, in the men and the women who live and were born in Israel. That's why we dedicated so much for research and development. This is why we invest so much in education. To my humble opinion, not enough. The teachers in Israel are underpaid. But in principle, we understand the need, the necessity to invest in our people. And this is a strategic decision which has nothing to do with politics. All governments from the right or from the left follow this principle. The human resource, the men and women in Israel are our biggest asset. I mentioned necessity before. Necessity forces us, because of our natural conditions, forces us to depend first and foremost on ourselves. There was my friend, the American ambassador, here before. America is our biggest friend. And we have very close relations with the United States and also with Europe. But in time which we were, for example, offered to join NATO or to have a defense pact with the United States, we are a little bit reserved, because once we do it, we lose our independence to react when we have to react. And I don't have to mention you our neighbors from the north and from the south, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran. All this geostrategic area in which we live in forces us to depend first and foremost on ourselves. After talking about this, I would like to mention, just before I finish, a field which also in this field, Israel has become one of the leading countries in the world, and this is cybersecurity. Yesterday, your Minister Bizonovich paid a visit to Israel. He signed 2 agreements, one with the Ministry of the Interior in Israel of cooperation, a renewed agreement, and then he went and signed an MOU with the Center of Anti-Terrorism in one of the leading colleges in Israel in the field of anti-terrorism. And today, he signed another MOU with our cyber authority on cooperation in the field of cyber and cybersecurity. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to look at what Israel has been doing in the last 10 years in the field of cyber, and those who are thinking of investing or to dealing with the issue of cyber and cybersecurity, my door is open. Not only for cyber. Before we finish, I would like to leave with you with the message that if you don't innovate, you will perish. If you don't innovate, you will not be successful. And in order to innovate, you have to think in the 4 or 5 principles which I share with you. As I said at the beginning, you cannot copy-paste. You don't have a magic formula. But these principles, for those young creation, can be a role model to follow. And if they want to develop it, Israel is open for you. Israel is open for your business. Israel is open for a cooperation. And also Israel is ready to show you more closely those principles which I share with you today. So either you innovate or you perish. And with this, I would like to say thank you and leave you with this.
We live in exciting times where everything is at the touch of our fingers, where everything constantly changes before our eyes, and the next big thing becomes a thing of the past before we know it. We live in an era where thinking outside of the box has become the new box, and words and ideas are transforming the world. But even in this fascinating, non-stop, ever-changing world, there's a unique place where people live by the phrase, necessity is the mother of invention, and where imagination leads to creation. A place where reinventing yourself is a part of the job, and while you're trying to make the world a better place, you can sometimes settle for finding the best way home. A place where curiosity about life makes us connect things, find our path, quench our thirst for wonder, make life simple, keep it safe, dream the impossible, and take what's possible to places we never dreamed of. A place where failure is just another step towards success, and where a closed door just leads to another opportunity, where bubbliness is the secret ingredient. Because here in Israel, we are changing the future today.
So, ladies and gentlemen, This is Israel, a country which must be recognized not only for the political conflict in the Middle East, but first and foremost for this, changing the future based on a Jewish principle called Tikkun Olam, making the world better. Huala Puno.